Online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, and boy, this whole Save Our Democracy business over gerrymandering is going about as well for the left as did the Save Our Democracy by not providing an early buyout for federal government employees. It just doesn't have stickiness, I don't think, particularly when you have a couple of the principal proponents, those would be Governors Hochul and Pritzker, upchucking all over themselves on national TV shows, as occurred this weekend. First, Kathy Hochul being queried by Shannon Bream on Fox News Sunday about what the courts had to say about New York State's congressional district maps. And Hochul only had her talking point to use in defense.
Here's how National Review summarized it. They said it was only 3 years ago that New York's Democratic legislature drew up a map so brazenly contemptuous of basic rules that govern a district's contiguousness that the state's Democrat-dominated Court of Appeals threw it out. The New York Times at the time called those maps comically contorted. That's their quote. So your state's highest court at the time, all the judges appointed by Democratic governors, they threw the maps out. So fair to say Democrats have done what they're now accusing Republicans of doing.
No, we followed the rules. We do it every 10 years. We base it on census.
But the court said you didn't follow the rules.
Well, we did follow the rules.
So the court was wrong?
Well, we followed the rules.
So did you follow the rules? We followed the rules. Yeah, I got it. Democrat-dominated high court. When you've lost the New York Times, Kathy Hochul. Oh, boy. Yeah, we follow the rules. We broke the rules in the time when you're supposed to break the rules. That's how we follow them. We didn't do it mid-decade, so the fact that what we did was illegitimate is okay because we did this illegitimate thing in what we say is the prescribed time. It's a compelling argument. Dizzying intellect, that Kathy Hochul. Jelly Belly, Pritzker, that is, didn't do much better when confronted by Kristen Welker, of all people. When you lost the New York Times, Kathy Hochul. When you've lost Meet the Press, J.B. Pritzker. Confronted by Welker with Illinois' map.
Look, sticking on your state's map, every major group that grades the fairness of congressional maps gives your state an F. Common Cause, a nonpartisan government watchdog, even says your map, and I'm going to quote, represents a nearly perfect model for everything that can go wrong with redistricting. And I guess the question is, you talk about preserving democracy. How do you preserve democracy if you're using the same tactics that you've criticized Texas Republicans for?
But as I say, what they're talking about is a distraction. The reality is that the violation of people's voting rights is what Texas is attempting to do. That's what's wrong with their efforts right now. And the fact that the president of the United States knows it and nevertheless is asking them to do it. That is what's wrong with what we're seeing right now. Democracy is at stake.
We follow the rules, Kristen. Democracy is at stake. We don't have time to worry about Illinois' map. We've got to address the Texans and their threat to democracy. These MAGA extremists, all the buzzwords in no particular order. For more on this, please be joined by John Hinderaker, president of the Center of the American Experiment, contributor Powerline, powerlineblog.com. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Always great to be with you, Dan.
I haven't seen two skilled communicators like that since Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
Well, they're not used to being asked questions. You know, it's shocking. You go and Meet the Press, and somebody actually asks a Democratic politician a question. They are not used to it. But you know, Dan, I mean, we can cut to the chase here. You know, a lot of this is a kind of a so's your old man, you did it, we do it. But an economist who works for my organization went through systematically and looked at each state, and he calculated if the congressional representation was as close as possible to the votes for Congress in the last election. 50% Democratic votes should be 50% representatives in Congress. And if you net all that out, the bottom line is that the Democrats have an extra 6 seats in Congress. And that also means, by the way, 6 votes in the Electoral College. So if we did away with gerrymandering, the net effect would be there would be more Republicans and fewer Democrats in Congress.
You said 6 more Democrats. You mean 6 more Republicans?
Oh, I'm sorry if I said that. It's early in the morning, Dan. If I said
no problem. 6 more Republicans.
The Democrats are overrepresented by that measure by 6 seats. So if you had perfect representation according to the votes for Congress in each state, there'd be 6 more Republicans, 6 fewer Democrats.
Yeah, but even though they say that's their standard, they don't want to be held to it, of course.
Well, of course not. No, it's a threat to democracy.
Right.
That's the classic line. A threat to democracy is when Democrats lose an election.
Yeah, although, I mean, I have to say they're really making a mess of this in the sense that the response to, the throwdown of the gauntlet, if you do this in Texas, then we're going to do this in the states where we control. Well, to your point, we'll go ahead. And then we'll just incentivize more people to be as aggressive as Greg Abbott is in places like South Carolina and other states where there is big still upside of 1 to 2 to 3 seats, Indiana, elsewhere. And so then the net will be even more decided than you just said on behalf of Republicans.
Well, even the New York Times admitted that the Democrats have a big problem in the states they control. They are already so heavily gerrymandered, there's not much more they can do. Illinois is a great example. I think it's 18 Democrats, 3 Republicans.
14-3 of the 17.
14-3, okay.
Yeah.
And I think there are like 5 states, including Massachusetts, where there are no Republican congressmen. Maryland is another one. You can't further gerrymander a state that already doesn't have any Republicans in Congress. And so they're kind of, a lot of this is idle threats coming from the Democrats because they've already done about all they can do.
Well, do you also get the sense that this everything is saving our democracy is sort of becoming the new racism? I mean, it's an accusation that has just been rendered meaningless through overuse and misapplication.
Well, that certainly is true, Dan. I don't think very many people pay attention to it anymore. It's also gotten really hollow as the Republican share of minority votes has grown. Hispanics are now Donald Trump's best demographic.
Yeah, right. It's something that Jasmine Crockett is having a difficult time explaining in terms of her position in Texas on the mapping and so forth. Very interesting. Bobby O'Rourke. You may know him as Beto. I mean, he's been involved in this. He sort of reemerged because I guess he helped to underwrite the abdication to Illinois of those Texas legislators. I mean, he had this to say about the posture the party should take. I think it's one of those cases where, he said the thing out loud that you're supposed to say in close quarters.
We're not going to let him stop us. Are you with me on that? Ándale. It also means, as Mark was saying earlier, we don't await the punch thrown by these would-be fascists to land. We punch first, and we punch harder. We want California and New Jersey and Illinois and Maryland and every other state where the Democrats hold the governor's mansion, the assembly, and the state senate to redraw their congressional districts now, not wait for Texas to move first, to maximize Democratic Party advantage. Listen, you may say to yourself, well, those aren't the rules. There are no refs in this game. The rules. We are going to win whatever it takes. We're going to take this to them in every way that we can.
Democrats 2026, frack the rules. That's the slogan.
Yeah, well, you're right. Yeah, he said out loud what the Democrats have been doing for quite a while, but prefer not to talk about. And as we said there, Dan, I mean, good luck with that. I don't know that there are any states that the Democrats control that are not already so heavily gerrymandered that it would be hard to make them much worse.
I wanted to get your take on something J.D. Vance said on an unrelated topic over the weekend in his sit-down with Maria Bartiromo. I heard it. I was sort of happy to hear it, and I was a little trepidatious as well, because this is the expectations game again. And, I mean, he's got a Yale law degree. I mean, I know he understands the law, and he's a smart guy. But you're putting a marker down that, well, if it's not honored, I think the Trump administration is going to have some disappointments at minimum. Here's what J.D. Vance said about Maria Bartiromo's stock question, which is, when are we going to get a reckoning for the ne'er-do-wells who participated in Russiagate?
What they basically did is they defrauded the American people in order to take Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign talking points and turn them into intelligence by defrauding the American people, defrauding the intelligence agencies, lying about what the intel said. They would take something that supported a Hillary Clinton campaign talking point, and they would overemphasize it and exaggerate it. They took anything that actually contradicted that narrative and they buried it deep, and through that, they actually laundered Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign talking points through the American intelligence services. That's a violation of the people's trust. That's a violation of what our intelligence services should be doing. And I absolutely think they broke the law. You're going to see a lot of people get indicted for that.
That was the last part. That last part. You're going to see a lot of people get indicted. How'd you react to that?
Well, I've been writing about this on Powerline, as you may know, Dan. I'm concerned about it because I want to hear somebody tell me what is the law that they broke. Defrauding the American people, that is not a crime. That was one of the elements in New York State of that notorious prosecution that was brought against Trump, which is going to be overturned on appeal. I mean, unless you're sending inflated invoices or something like that, defrauding the American people is, you won't find that anywhere in the federal criminal code. The most coherent answer I've heard is perjury. Well, I'd like to know who and when, right? Because the statute of limitations on perjury is 5 years under federal law. And so people talk about the testimony that John Brennan gave before the House Intelligence Committee in 2017. And I agree. I think he did perjure himself in that testimony. However, the statute of limitations ran 3 years ago. And so I'm with you, Dan. I'm concerned that the administration is building up this expectation. It's kind of like Jeffrey Epstein, Yeah. They're building up this expectation that there's going to be a bunch of indictments, and we're going to see John Brennan and Clapper and Comey and these guys in orange jumpsuits. So I would love to see them pay a price for what they did. The Russia collusion hoax, in my opinion, was the worst scandal in American political history, but I'm still waiting for somebody to explain exactly what is the crime and when was it committed and by whom.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard, I'm sure you've heard as well, Mike Davis from Article 3 Project and others make an argument on behalf of conspiracy charges, conspiracy to deprive rights, conspiracy to perjure. If there are any subsequent acts extend the conspiracy, could bring prior bad acts into exposure, legal exposure. Again, prior bad acts being instances of perjury. So there are definitely some theories about that. But yeah, I mean, I agree. There's a lot of been made of this strike force that the Department of Justice has apparently put together on this, and they seem to be moving in a fairly aggressive posture, consistent with the facts. But at the end of the day, if you want to take down a Comey or a Brennan, much less anybody higher up on the food chain than that, if you're a prosecutor, which Pam Bondi is, she's going to want an airtight case.
Yeah, the kinds of theories you just mentioned, Dan, seem to me to be very tenuous. We don't want to do what they did in state court in Atlanta. Fannie Willis, remember her?
Oh, yeah.
They had a conspiracy case, a RICO case, and they forgot to allege any criminal acts in the conspiracy. I mean, it was one of the most pathetic complaints I've ever seen in my life. And of course, the case crumbled for a variety of reasons. So they want something solid. It's anything they do here is going to be very heavily scrutinized, and I'm still waiting to see what those solid criminal charges might be.
Well, I'm patient. I mean, I'll wait till they exhaust their efforts, but we'll see. I wanted to get just sort of a stop, look, and listen. Thinking about the midterms, even though they're quite far off. But what's your temperature on a state like Minnesota, where you hail? In terms of, is there real angst with Trump? Is it the same as it was midterm in his first term? Are things different? Do you have any sort of optimism about the prospects for Republicans to surprise and hold in 26, despite the historic headwinds of a midterm?
I'm not optimistic about that, Dan. I mean, the Democrats only have to pick up a handful of seats. I don't see this as being very different from most midterms. The out party is heavily motivated, and the Democrats are just crazed. A lot of what I think Democratic politicians are doing nowadays is really just intended to whip their troops up into a frenzy for the midterm election. And as far as I can see, the Democrats are in a frenzy. And another problem I see, we certainly see this in Minnesota. We saw it in 2022. There are quite a few conservative-leaning voters who are Trump voters. They'll turn out for Donald Trump. They may or may not turn out for Republicans if Trump is not on the ballot. And I think that's going to be a big problem in my state in 2026, and I think that could be true in other states as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's a problem. You win and then you get complacent, or just the energy isn't there. I mean, the sort of this is why the enthusiasm measure that's in so much polling is always an important number to look at. Who's really motivated to go out there and die on a hill for their candidate or their party. John Hinderaker is president of Center of the American Experiment, contributor to Powerline, powerlineblog.com. John, thanks as always.
Great to be with you, Dan.
And John joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr. Now heard on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Tune in and find hope as Jim Scudder explores God's Word and His world each Sunday morning right here on AM 560. The Answer.
Your manufacturing production is only as good as your manufacturing team.
Monarch makes you better, plain and simple. They do